by their governing court, their judicial system, they were sentenced to remain here on Earth. And now, I know this is a big leap, and in the interest of time, I'm going to have to make the big leap, but I will make the reference to my DVD, Fool Me Once, because I do address this in a little bit more detail.
Yeah.
But the people who are very much at the heart of those driving for the New World Order, the New Jerusalem, they absolutely believe that they are the descendants of this group of people that were sentenced to remain here on Earth and the human women with whom they mated. Now, what we know from the book of Enoch is that these people, or these beings, were sentenced to remain here for a period of approximately 5,500 years, but a period that would be that will come to an end in the year of mystery. The year of mystery. Now, it's my belief that within the Brotherhoods, they believe that the year of mystery is 2012. And so, consequently, they actually don't know what the next few years holds, but they're running very scared because they're actually concerned that their domination of this planet, and I mean, let's not beat around the bush, that's what they have. They have domination today.
Sure.
They control through, the manipulation of finance, the manipulation of resources, the manipulation of wars, the manipulation of famine. They dominate the planet. And they are concerned that their period of domination is coming to an end. And they don't know what the future beholds for them. But they're concerned that if the year of mystery is 2012, then whoever it was that put them here is going to come back for them. And they absolutely believe that because in the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jared, it states very clearly that the place that they were deposited was Mount Hermon, which today sits on the border of Lebanon, Syria, and Israel. And that was the place at which they were deposited. Now, how do we get to the year of mystery? Well, Mount Hermon sits at a very, very interesting location. Now, if you go to Wikipedia, it actually gives the geographical coordinates of the summit of Mount Hermon. So, and they're a little bit different from the coordinates that I'm going to quote now, but not significantly so. Now, the point is that a researcher by the name of David Flynn came up a few years ago with the conjecture that Mount Hermon, interestingly, sits at a very unique place on the planet, and it sits at 33.53 degrees north of the equator and 33.53 degrees east of the 0 degree meridian. But not of the current 0 degree meridian, of the meridian as it was prior to 1886, when the 0 degree meridian went through Paris. It was only after 1886 that it was moved to Greenwich in London. So when you make the adjustment, then what you come up with is not exactly the summit of Mount Hermon. What you come up with is an area in the plains, in the valleys, just alongside Mount Hermon. And what you may remember is that 2 years ago, the Israelis launched a massive attack on southern Lebanon under the guise of trying to recover a soldier that had allegedly been kidnapped by the Hezbollah Lebanese forces. Well, what the Israelis did was they launched this massive attack on southern Lebanon, going up to the Litani River, and effectively ensured that whole area was completely uninhabitable. And just to make sure of that after the ceasefire was agreed, there was 3 days between the ceasefire being agreed and it being implemented. And in the 3 days, the Israeli Air Force carpet bombed the whole area with these cluster bombs. It's a terrible, terrible weapon that leaves small bomblets all over the ground. And if people accidentally tread on them, drive over them, or children pick them up, of course, it causes terrible injury. So it means that whole area is completely uninhabitable. And today it's a UN zone. It's completely controlled by the UN, with the exception of the part that is in Syria. And consequently, you may have heard recently that in the US there's been a lot of very bullish talk about attacking Syria.
Indeed, yeah.
Because I believe that these guys don't know what's going to happen in 2012, but they do believe that it is centered in some way around Mount Hermon. And they want to be sure that they are in, military control of that area. Now, this is incredibly arrogant because, let's just think about this for a second. Let's assume that they're right in their conjecture and that, they were deposited here 5,500 years ago, give or take. Mm. And they were told that, you're going to be repatriated in the year of mystery. And, that today, if these guys believe that they have the technology to counter any return of these people, I mean, it's arrogant to the point of being ridiculous. But that's what they believe, and that's why they are in control. Now, these guys want to make sure they literally have their one world government in place by December 21st, 2012. Mm-hmm. So how are they going to do that? Well, to do that, we can actually go back to a document that was produced in the 1960s. And in this document, it's called the Report from Iron Mountain. Yeah. And let me just quote from a piece of this document, because this whole document is talking about the desirability, or the report is on the possibility and desirability of peace. And this right-wing think tank was given the task to find ways of controlling the population without actually resorting to war. Now, bear in mind, this is 1967. Here it is. The most ambitious and unrealistic space project cannot of itself generate a believable external menace. It has been hotly argued that such a menace would offer the last best hope of peace, etc., by uniting mankind against the danger of destruction by creatures from other planets or from outer space.
There we go.
And so, Reagan, all through his tenancy of the White House, he was often talking about, wouldn't it be amazing if mankind could pull together, and what it would take for mankind to pull together like a major attack from outer space. Werner von Braun also predicted that this was being planned as a ruse to effectively subjugate all national governments to the world government. And, it's not particularly original because, of course, in 1938, Orson Welles ran a radio broadcast in New York where he read War of the Worlds, and, he read it in such a way that it was effectively like a news broadcast, and he had New York State in absolute panic.
Yeah.
Well, I believe that there is a very, very strong possibility that the New World Order are planning to use the London Olympics as the opportunity to establish global control and a one-world government by staging a fake alien invasion at the London Olympics.
Really?
And to do this, they will use, all the techniques that have been perfected in Hollywood. They'll use amazing special effects. They'll use holographic technology, and it will be broadcast around the world. There'll be other simultaneous events going off in other countries to sort of add weight to this charade. But all of the world, consider all of the world's major TV stations, all the world's sort of, reporters, the eyes of the world will be on London. Now, this is a greenfield site, or brownfield site rather, because they're absolutely decimating an old area of eastern London. To build this Olympic city, which originally was going to cost $2 billion, but now the costs are up to $20 billion.
Oh, nice.
You can put in a lot of special effects for that kind of money.
Indeed.
So, my point in flagging this up is if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Right.
If I'm right and we get the word out, I'll be wrong because they won't do it.
Right.
So I can't win either way. But the bottom line is, these guys are looking to stage something mega. They're desperate to find a way to do what 9/11 did in the US and what 7/7 did in the UK. Now they want to do it on a global basis. And the best opportunity they've got for this, I think, they've documented it in a number of places, but it's a fake alien invasion. And when they start to present this, as news, then I just hope that the vast majority of the people in the world go, hang on a goddamn second, we're not falling for that one.
I mean, there's so many different things to say about this, and to pick up on. One thing, of course, is to mention is that, as you did in the beginning, initially, before you kind of went into this area, that this actually might be, if we talk about the Anunnaki and them tracing themselves to these, the very ancient bloodlines that potentially is extraterrestrial, what have you, but this might be a fairy tale of their own making, because they want to make out themselves, to be more important than they actually are.
Yep, it might be.
It might be, but it also might be true. We don't really know at this point, but it's definitely something that they are looking at. We know that, so it's definitely worth keeping an eye on this and considering this and thinking about it. And this connects in a very interesting way. I mean, 2012 is kind of the year we make contact or whatever. We even have, if we want to connect this with something more recently that happened in the news, we have the Vatican now going out and spreading the word to the whole Catholic community, if you will, that it's okay to believe in aliens, and this we're seeing these small kind of hints, as it were, leading up to this point potentially. What do you think about the Vatican statement there?
I mean, we certainly know that the Vatican is very aware that something significant is very likely going to happen in the near future. I mean, one of the prophecies that, again, we can take a look at is, the name escapes me for a second. It was the Irish monk. The name will come back to me in a second. But it was the Irish monk of the 13th century who had a vision when he was making a trip to Rome. Mm. And he documented his visions. And basically, he came up with Nostradamus-like verses. Yeah. Which were lost, actually, because what he did, he wrote them down, he gave them to, one of the senior officials at the Vatican, but then they were lost in the archives. And when they were discovered some 200 years later, and they were reviewed, what was realized was that each of these verses related to a pope.
Right. Malachi, Saint Malachi.
St. Malachi, thank you very much, Henrik, thank you. It was indeed St. Malachi. And what was established was that within these verses, there would actually be 112 further popes after the pope who was in office when St. Malachi made his pilgrimage to Rome. Mm. Well, the current incumbent, interestingly enough, Mr. Ratzinger, Pope Benedict, is number 111. Mm. So within these predictions, the Vatican is very concerned that they're coming to the end of effectively their domination of the Christian faith. And of course, what we do know as well was that Pope John Paul II was absolutely convinced that sometime during his lifetime he would come face to face with the Antichrist. Really? Hmm. Now, whether he did or he didn't, or whether he believes he did or he didn't, we don't know. Sure. But no, it was actually documented that he believed that at some point he would have a face-to-face meeting with the Antichrist. And of course, many people conjectured that he had that when he met with George Bush, but right. I don't think George Bush is the Antichrist somehow.
Or he looked in the mirror one day. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, maybe. So the Vatican, I think, is understandably starting to sow the seeds. Yeah. But, one of the concerns I think we should flag up, Henrik, is that there could be another agenda here, because these guys, they don't know for sure, of course, what's going to happen. They're going on their, if you like, traditions. But if they do launch this fake alien invasion, which they then use as a means, as an attempt to establish this one world government, it also has the potential effect of demonizing extraterrestrials. Hmm. So then, after that, once they've launched this fake attack, of which, of course, the New World Order combined forces apparently save the world, from that moment onwards, in the minds of the masses, is exactly the same mentality as with the Muslims in the aftermath of 9/11. Hmm. Therefore, extraterrestrials, attempt to take over the world, therefore, they must be demonized. Yeah. So